Alright, so hopping on the R7, we're going to go ahead and do some draggy testing, get some before and afters. So before we get the Hord Power intake installed and the ECU flashed by Two Wheel Dyno Works, I'm going to try to do, I want to eliminate as many variables as possible. I can't really control like temperature differences or like density, altitude, or anything like that, but I'm going to try to do the runs in the same spot, close to the same temperature, and whatnot, and also not going to worry about like 0 to 60. So going to already have the bike rolling, probably going to try to grab some like 30 to 80s or 40 to 100, something like that. I've got a few different ones running, so we'll capture all of those and probably do it a couple times just to get a couple consistent numbers, and then we'll see what it does after the Hord Power intake and the ECU flash. So let's go ahead and get that reset. We'll go ahead and do our first run. Get out here. Okay, should be good. Alright, let's just take a look real quick and see. So 40 to 80, 3.5 seconds. 40 to 100 was 6.5. 30 to 100, 7.17. So, I don't really know what these numbers mean right now. So we'll go out here, get turned around, go to our closed course area, and do another run and see what we get. Alright, let's go ahead and do one more, get that reset, and then we'll see what kind of numbers we get. We'll get turned around and we'll do one more for good measure, and that should be good enough to give us some before and after numbers, get a good idea of the difference that the intake and the tune is going to make for the bike. Alright, I don't know if some of these numbers went away, but oops. See, 40 to 80, 3.49 seconds. I think that's almost exactly the same as when I started in second. And then 40 to 100, 6.9, 60 to 100, 5.54. So yeah, numbers are pretty similar. Since I've got one run in first gear and then another one in second, I'm gonna do this next one in second. It's a little less violent, and I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. And really, as long as I do the next test in the same fashion, for sake of comparison, I don't think it's going to matter, right? Like if the numbers are different in the same gear, then they're going to be different. So, and that will be pretty obvious. So let's get that reset, and we'll get out here and do another pull. Do this one in second. So let's see what we got. 40 to 100, 6.3, 60 to 100, 4.95. Am I losing my mind? That was faster. That was the fastest run. But numbers are pretty similar, so I think that'll be good enough. I mean, I would imagine it's a pretty significant power increase across the rev range with the tune and the intake, so I think even though these numbers are maybe have a little bit of variation, I think that assuming the tune and intake does what it's supposed to do, the difference in numbers should be pretty obvious. So I think that's good enough to get us some before runs, so we will catch you once the intake is installed and the ECU has been flashed, and we'll see what it does. Alrighty, well, we are back to getting to work on the R7. We're going to be getting the Hord Power intake installed. I did have to get on a wait list to get this. He doesn't have them actively in stock, but you can reach out to him, email him, and then he'll, get you one as soon as they're available, and he'll ship them out to you. The price did go up on these, unfortunately, but in my opinion, I still think it's worth it. Seeing as for these bikes, there's really not that many options. You have this, the Yoshimura intake. Downside to that is that, that is a really thin foam filter. And so I don't think they hold up very well to like the elements. So if you ride your bike a lot in the rain or anything like that, it's not really serviceable. So you can't really wash the filter or anything like that, but they do pick up good power. So that's an option. The only other one that I know of is the MWR, I believe, pod filters. So it essentially has, your runners and then with pod filters on the end of them. And I think those make pretty similar power. Two Wheel Dyno Works has a video on that that they put out pretty recently. And actually, I think those MWR pod filters made a little bit more power on the very top end, but not probably anything that you would feel different from, say, the Hord Power. So I kind of like the way that this intake is set up. It's pretty serviceable. I think you can get a replacement filter. I believe this is a K&N part number. I had found it at one point, so that's kind of nice. Should be pretty straightforward. Well, I say that. It looks like it could be a pain in the butt. A lot of people end up just like cutting the intake in half because it has these big plastic pieces on the ends. And so in order to get it out, you either have to cut it or you have to take the throttle bodies off, which is what I'm gonna do. I may wish that I just cut it up. I'm never gonna put the factory intake back on, but in case I wanna sell the bike, I guess it'd be nice that I could include the factory air box with it. So I'm gonna do my best to not cut it. I think the approach, based on what I've seen, there's not a whole lot of great videos. Not to remove the tank completely, but to get it to where you can at least get it elevated to reach some of those sensors and fuel lines and injector harnesses and things like that. They're on the top of the throttle bodies, so that you can get those out of the way, and then this will slide out from the side. But I think the first order of business is gonna be getting some of these fairing panels off. I'm actually not entirely sure because I've never taken these parts of the bike off. So we're just gonna kind of wing it. All right, well, we got the ECU back from Two Wheel Dyno Works. It was crazy. I shipped it out on Monday, paid for second day air, so it got to them on Wednesday morning, and by Wednesday afternoon they had it flashed and shipped back out. So the intake's on. ECU ended up coming in earlier today, so today's Friday. I went ahead and slapped it in. So I wanted to make sure to record just kind of my initial reactions, and yeah, let's see how the bike feels. So I am expecting a little bit of a slower start since some of the fuel came out of the lines, and per their notes, you will have a check engine light for 2 ride cycles, I believe, just from having the ECU disconnected. So that should be on, but nothing to worry about. So let's go ahead and make sure it starts up. There we go. Thought it might be a little slow, but it started, so that's all that matters. So seems like we were able to put everything back together good enough for it to keep running, so that's good. I'm excited. Oh, I'm dying to see how it feels. Let it warm up for a minute and then we'll go for a little ride. I will say already it feels like I can tell the throttle response feels different, and the engine braking doesn't feel as aggressive, which is nice because it's got really strong engine braking from the factory. I'll also be curious to see if the I think they update the quick shifter mapping and how it works with the engine timing to improve it some, so curious if that's going to be noticeable. Oh yeah, the throttle response is definitely better. Oh yeah, it's noticeable. Even at like 6th gear, low RPM, it definitely has like a different tone too. I was wondering with having the air box kind of like exposed like that, like similar on how cars you can kind of get that intake noise. It definitely has kind of like a little bit more growl or intake noise that you can hear down low. Oh yeah, that's so much better. And the quick shifter definitely feels different. I can't describe what about it feels different, but it definitely has a different feel to it. But it definitely feels like the bike has some more balls to it. Oh yeah. It's got a lot more pep. I am really curious to ring it out at the higher RPM, because these bikes from the factory with no tune really make peak power around like a little over 8,000. So after that, you're really getting nothing except for just setting the bike up for a better shift point when you change gears. But with the tune, I'll throw the dyno graphs up that Two Wheel Dyno Works has, but it makes power all the way to redline now. So I think where you really feel the difference with this intake and tune combination is the top end. But I can just immediately say for sure the drivability is way better, throttle response is better, and it definitely feels quicker, like everywhere. All right, let's see how she pulls the redline. So much better. Oh my god, noticeable, very noticeable. Wow, that is the best money you could spend on this bike, is the intake and the tune. Holy crap, that is a massive difference. Wow. Oh, and it sounds awesome. There's definitely a lot more intake noise under load. That is fantastic. Wow, what an awesome job by Nate and the guys at Two Wheel Dyno Works. That's fantastic. Yeah, and the quick shifter, I think what it is, so full throttle, it feels about the same as it was before, but maybe a little bit smoother. And if you're full throttle and you shift it lower RPM, it has like a, like you can feel it delay a little bit more, but it's way smoother. This quick shifter factory, even if you're at full throttle, if you shift it a little shorter, say like 5,000 to 7,000, it definitely is like pretty, it engages, I don't want to say rough, but it's a very firm engagement. Whereas now it definitely feels like they've got the time set up to where it is not as maybe hard on the gearbox. So I'll kind of try to see if it does that again. Yeah, it definitely feels different. So it's got more of like a delay if you're not all the way up in the RPM band, like closer to redline, but it's way smoother for sure. And that's not full throttle, and obviously kind of mid-range RPM. So, you know, it kind of out of the box is just not designed to work that well. It does best full throttle, high RPM, but you know, whatever they do to improve it, it definitely feels better. Oh yeah. Oh my God, it's faster for sure. Oh yeah, and it'll lift the front tire off for sure. That is amazing. I'm so happy. I'm so happy with this setup. That was well worth the money. I mean, I could do that all day. That is addicting. Yeah. He's giving me the thumbs up. That's awesome. I'd say it'll power wheelie now. That is, damn. If you are on the fence about getting a tune, and definitely the intake in the tune, I'm telling you, you should do it. I waited way too long. I can't believe I was riding the bike without this done. Holy crap, it feels so much better. I mean, even there, like at that lower, it definitely has more. I mean, that is a blast. Man, before and first, like, no matter how hard you flogged it, you could feel the front tire getting light, but now it will straight up. It is going to lift the front of the bike in first. And even in second gear down low and flooring it feels like how first used to. Well, that's probably enough screaming and yelling for me. I think you guys get the point. I don't have the Dragy and stuff with me right now because I just had to get on it and just go for a rip, and I didn't want to skip out on getting my true initial impressions. So we'll jump to another part where I'll have the Dragy with me and do some comparative runs. So alrighty, well, we are back out on the R7. Gonna do some Dragy runs to see the after results of the Hord Power intake and Two Wheel Dyno Works ECU flash. You can probably tell by my reaction, the bike definitely feels significantly different. The drivability is a lot better, less engine braking, quick shifter works better, A lot more power in the top end, a lot more power everywhere, really. Ton of fun, well worth the money, but curious to see what the difference in numbers is. I think I'm going to kind of use the 40 to 100 as a baseline, because that's a pretty solid number to make sure the bike's already rolling full throttle, no traction issues or anything like that at 40. I think between the 3 runs, I'll post them up on the video, but I think between 3 runs that I did, the average was right at like 6.5 seconds. So, you know, we'll kind of see what we can get. I know I did some of those runs in first gear maybe, so I should have probably gone back and kept track of that. But from what I recall, I don't think there was really a massive difference between starting in first, because it's already kind of wrung out at that speed. So I don't know that it really makes a difference starting the run in second, but we'll do a few runs and we will see what we get. The air is better today. It was 75, I think, when I did the initial runs. So the DA is definitely a lot lower. So that may help some, but if it's like a significant difference, right? Like if we're talking like it's a difference of multiple 3-4 tenths of a second difference, you know, 65 degrees to 75 degrees is not going to make that kind of a difference. I don't think so. So let's go ahead and get her started up, and we'll do our first run. Hard for me to look, but I see 5.8. That is a big difference. And maybe there's a little more in it with taking off in first, I'm not sure. But I can just tell you from 6.5 to 5.8, the air being a little bit cooler is not going to make that difference. Because we're talking, that's an average of 6.5. There was a couple runs that were like 6.7, 6.9. So that is undoubtedly quicker. I'd have to look and see what the other times are as far as like 60 to 100 and 30 to 100 and kind of compare those, but I'm at least logging them. So for the sake of consistency, we're going to do 3. So we'll get turned around here and do another one, see how she does. So it looks like 6.05, so not as good as the first one, but no matter how you look at it, that's like half a second, which is huge. If I had the bike on the previous runs and I could have it next to this one at the same time as these runs, I mean, a half a second would be pretty significant. You know, kind of like a generic rule of thumb, like in racing for cars, is like 1/10 of a second is a car length. So you're talking like 5 car lengths difference, which is pretty significant. So I'd say the numbers definitely back up how the bike feels, because it feels a lot faster, that's for sure. Well, we'll get turned around up here and we'll do one more just to keep things consistent and see what we get. I will say, visually, just looking, going this way is probably slightly uphill, so that may be a little bit of the difference there between the runs, but I did all these runs in the same way. I did the first one on this side, one on that side, and then another one over here. So and plus on the Dragy, as long as it says valid, then they kind of say that, you know, it's not enough of a incline or decline to be considered cheating, really. So as long as it says verified, I'm gonna call that good. So all right, let's go ahead and do one more, see what we get. 5.93. So no doubt, even with some accounting for some variance, it's on average it's a lot faster at really any of those speeds, I think. So I think that kind of goes to show that definitely well worth the money as far as performance gains go for these bikes. I think it's really hard to beat this intake and ECU flash combination. So, well, I appreciate you guys watching the video. Hopefully there'll be some more stuff to come, some more modifications for the bike. I do have some stuff in mind, so keep an eye out for that. But until then, we will see you in the next one.